Hi scholars, and welcome to this e-learning lesson video. This is the first in a series of videos on essay enrichment. This one deals with the Q2 rhetorical analysis essay, specifically on the different ways that you can progress through your analysis in your writing. All right, before you write a rhetorical analysis essay, you must first decide how you're going to progress through the text that you're given to analyze. On the Q2 rather, you're given a passage. You're asked to analyze the rhetorical strategies that the writer uses. The newest language calls them rhetorical choices, and how those strategies are used to achieve a purpose. You're expected to work through the entire passage and not just pick and choose one part of it. So how should you progress through the text that you're given? When choosing how to progress through your analysis, you have two choices. You can either work chronologically or holistically. Working chronologically means that you analyze the strategies as they appear in the order they appear within the text. So you'd write something like this: to accomplish their purpose, the writer does X, then Y, which lets them finally do Z. The body paragraphs here in an essay organized chronologically would discuss parts of the text in order. You want to use chronological examination when there is a clear progression of strategies within the text. Holistic examination, on the other hand, is where you analyze strategies that are used only periodically or throughout the text and not in any particular order. To accomplish their purpose, the writer does X and Y, all while doing Z. Your body paragraphs here would discuss strategies in order of significance, since there's not really any particular order to them in the passage. You want to use holistic examination when there is no clear progression of strategies. Let's take a look at an example of a Q2 prompt, this one from 2017, and this is the speech delivered by American journalist and politician Clare Boothe Luce. She delivered this speech at the Women's National Press Club, where she was invited to offer her criticisms of American journalism. And if we read through this text, we'd see some pretty clear strategies here. She begins by acknowledging the difficulty of criticizing the people in her audience. It's what she was invited there to do, but she acknowledges up front how difficult that is. She then flatters her audience by arguing why they, as journalists, are uniquely capable of handling that kind of criticism. And then finally, in the end, lays out her criticism of the audience. So here, since the strategies that are most noteworthy within the passage kind of build off of one another, and there's a clear order to them, we'd want to use a chronological examination. And that chronological examination might look something like this. Our body paragraphs would discuss the parts of the text in order, and so our thesis might look something like this. In her introduction, Luce attempts to prime her audience for her critique by first helping them understand her difficult task, then praising their selflessness, before finally laying out their faults. And a quick outline would show that we'd start our first body paragraph talking about how she's helping the audience understand her difficulties, then how she works to flatter them, and then finally how she lays out that criticism. So because this works more or less in order, this would be considered a chronological examination. Let's take a look at another example of a sample prompt, this one from 2016, the year before. This is Margaret Thatcher's eulogy of Ronald Reagan, former United States president. And here, if we read through this passage, we see some big strategies jump out at us. She begins by celebrating Reagan's many achievements. Then she moves on to humanize Reagan by describing his personality and various private moments that few people outside of his family and close friends would know. And then she goes back to celebrating more of his achievements. Then she moves on to make her main argument that the world is safer because of him. And then she also celebrates even more achievements after that. And so this kind of loose organizational pattern where she kind of goes back and forth, there's not really any building on anything here. So for this kind of passage, we'd want to use a holistic examination. And that examination might look something like this. Our body paragraphs would need to discuss the elements that run throughout the whole passage or periodically throughout the passage. So I might write a thesis statement like this. In her eulogy, Thatcher attempts to celebrate Reagan's presidency and character by humanizing him and arguing his impact on the world, all while ensuring the audience fully understands his numerous achievements in life. I might organize my essay by starting by talking about the way she humanizes him, first in paragraphs 2 and 3, but then she comes back to it in 15. I talk about the argument she makes about arguing how he impacted the world, changed the world. She starts that in 7 and 8, but also comes back to that at the very end of the passage. And then the way she lists all of his achievements just kind of throughout the whole speech. So I've organized this just kind of what I think is in order of importance. I think making sure that the audience understands all of his achievements is most important to her rhetoric. So I end with that in my third body paragraph. All right, so is one way of progressing better than the others? Well, there really isn't. You can write an effective Q2 essay using either of the two methods of progression. Higher scoring essays will, however, acknowledge how strategies build off of one another, and chronological examinations will force you to acknowledge this. However, holistic examination still allows you to acknowledge this, so really it's just about remembering to do so. In the end, you want to choose a progression method that's based on the text that you are given. You want to work chronologically if there's a clear order to the strategies that you see, or work holistically if there isn't any. Choosing one doesn't necessarily make for a more or less effective analysis, but choosing the most appropriate one for the text can help maximize your essay's effectiveness. All right, scholars, that's all I have for this first e-learning essay enrichment video. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. Please let me know any questions you might have, and I'll see you when I see you.